Tempest in Teyvat, Rimuru's Elemental Odyssey by KabirSingh808. The winds of change. The golden sun bathed the land in its warmth as Rimuru, Ether, Paimon, and Dane stepped out of the dark and foreboding domain. The air felt lighter, the serene beauty of the rolling hills and distant peaks of Liu providing a sharp contrast to the oppressive gloom they had just escaped. Rimuru took a deep breath, the familiar scent of Liu's air filling his senses, and his sharp eyes quickly surveyed the surroundings. "Looks like we're in Liu," Rimuru remarked, shielding his eyes from the bright sunlight with his hand. "Wait, what?" Paimon exclaimed, spinning around in disbelief. "Liu? How's that possible? We were in Mondstadt when we entered the domain. How in Teyvat did we end up here?" Dane stepped forward, his gaze steady and contemplative. "The Abyss has always manipulated their portals to suit their needs. The one in Mondstadt must have been linked to this domain, which in turn connected to Liu. It's part of their strategy to disorient pursuers and maintain control over their movements." Rimuru nodded in agreement, his expression thoughtful. "Makes sense. For us, these portals are a one-way ticket to wherever the Abyss wants us to be. But since we're here, let's make the most of it." Ether glanced around, still taking in their sudden change of location. His expression softened slightly as he recognized the distinctive terrain of Liu. "This place brings back memories. Liu Harbor should be close by." Paimon perked up, her stomach growling audibly. "If we're in Liu, that means Lantern Rite is just around the corner, right?" "Oh, Paimon's been waiting for this. Lantern Rite means delicious food, fireworks, and, oh, did I mention food?" Rimuru chuckled at her enthusiasm. "You've got your priorities straight, huh? Well, since we're here, we might as well enjoy the festival. It's a good opportunity to relax for a bit." Ether nodded, though his expression still held a trace of worry. "Yeah, Lantern Rite. I remember how lively Liu gets during this time. It'll be good for all of us to take a break and enjoy the celebrations." As they turned to leave, Dane's calm voice stopped them in their tracks. "I'm afraid I'll have to pass on the festival," he said, his tone resolute. Rimuru frowned slightly, turning to face him. "What's the matter, Dane? Where are you headed?" Dane crossed his arms, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "The Abyss is still in motion. I need to investigate what their forces are searching for near the ruin guards. That task can't wait." Ether's expression shifted, concern clear in his eyes. "You're really not going to enjoy the festival with us? Not even for a little while?" Dane shook his head. "No. The Abyss doesn't rest, and neither can I. But don't worry, we'll cross paths again soon enough. And Rimuru," he added, turning to him, "I'll keep an eye out for that dragon you mentioned. If I find anything, you'll be the first to know." Rimuru gave him a nod of gratitude. "That'll be a huge help. Thanks, Dane." Dane's lips curled into a faint smile. "Don't mention it. That dragon is as much of a threat to this world as the Abyss. I can't ignore it." With those words, he turned and began walking away, his silhouette soon blending into the distance. As the trio watched him leave, Paimon's voice broke the silence. "Well, since Dane's off doing his serious hero stuff, can we finally get some food now? Paimon's starving." Ether chuckled, some of his tension easing. "Why not? Let's head to Liu Harbor. Lantern Rite only comes once a year, after all." Rimuru smiled, the warm camaraderie between them bringing him a sense of calm despite the lingering concerns. "Sure, but I've got something else to take care of too," he said, summoning a neatly bound script from his spatial storage. "What's that?" Paimon asked, hovering closer to peer at the pages. "The script for Volume 2 of the Seven Visionaries," Rimuru explained, his tone carrying a mix of pride and excitement. "I'm planning to publish it soon." "Ooh, can Paimon read it first?" she asked eagerly. Rimuru laughed, holding the script out to her. "Of course, why not?" As Paimon flipped through the pages, her eyes lighting up with curiosity, the three of them began their journey toward Liu Harbor. The path was lined with lanterns hanging from branches, their soft glow hinting at the celebrations to come. The weight of the Abyss's schemes lingered in their minds, but for now, the promise of the Lantern Rite festival offered them a chance to embrace a fleeting moment of peace and joy amidst the chaos. The midday sun cast a warm glow over the towering gates of Liu Harbor, the city bustling with the energy of its residents preparing for the Lantern Rite festival. As Rimuru, Ether, and Paimon approached the gates, the atmosphere of joy and celebration seemed a stark contrast to the heavy thoughts lingering in their minds. Ether broke the silence, his expression serious. So, what's the plan now? We know Lumine is with the Abyss. What's our next move? Rimuru glanced at Ether, a mixture of determination and concern on his face. The journey doesn't end here, Ether. Lumine's situation is urgent, but we also need to deal with Ivaraj. From what I know, he isn't in Mondstadt or Liu, so our next destination is in Azuma. We need to find him before it's too late. Ether and Paimon nodded in agreement, though the weight of Lumine's fate was still heavy on their minds. The group passed through the gates, greeted by the vibrant sights and sounds of Liu Harbor in full festival preparation. Lanterns swayed gently in the breeze, their golden light already casting a soft glow across the streets. Children ran past, laughing, while merchants called out to passers-by, selling everything from dumplings to intricate paper lanterns. Paimon's eyes sparkled with excitement. Wow! The Lantern Rite Festival is even more amazing than I imagined. Ether's expression softened as he took in the scene, his worries momentarily eased by the lively atmosphere. It really is something special, he said, recalling about how the people of Liu told him about the past festivals. I've never seen Liu like this. Rimuru smiled at their reactions, but his mind remained focused on the task at hand. Enjoy the moment while we can, he said. We'll need all the energy we can muster for what's coming. Far from the joyous celebrations of Liu, the icy halls of the Fatui stronghold exuded an oppressive chill. The grand chamber was dimly lit, its atmosphere heavy with tension as all the harbingers assembled before the cryo-archon, the Tsaritsa. She sat on her ornate throne, her regal figure cloaked in shadow, her presence alone enough to silence the room. Signora stepped forward, her fiery confidence undiminished even in the presence of the archon. Your Grace, you summoned all of us here. May I ask the reason for this urgent meeting? My work in Inazuma is far from complete, and the Vision Hunt decree requires my supervision. The Tsaritsa raised a hand, silencing her. Her cold, commanding voice resonated through the chamber. Feldway will explain. From the shadows, Feldway stepped forward, his smile as sharp as a blade. His icy blue eyes swept over the harbingers, his tone confident and unwavering. The time has come. Ivaraj has been located. The room erupted into whispers, the tension growing palpable. For a long time, the harbingers had heard of Ivaraj, a being of immeasurable power, but to know his location meant that their long-awaited plans could finally advance. Ivaraj. Piero, the director of the harbingers, spoke, his deep voice cutting through the murmurs. And where is he? Feldway's grin widened. The Abyss has him. The atmosphere shifted immediately. Even the most composed of the harbingers seemed unsettled. Capitano stepped forward, his voice stern. And what is the Abyss planning to do with him? Feldway's expression darkened. The Abyss is divided. One faction, led by the princess, seeks to preserve the dignity of the Kyanrian people, refusing to use Ivaraj's corrupting power. The other faction, however, disagrees. They see Ivaraj as the ultimate weapon to annihilate the heavenly principles and corrupt Teyvat entirely, using his influence to strengthen their abyssal army. The revelation sent ripples of unease through the room. Even chilled, ever eager for battle, furrowed his brow. A civil war within the Abyss. This could complicate things. Capitano clenched his fists, his usual stoic demeanor cracking. Using the souls of the Kyanrian people as tools for destruction is unforgivable. Those souls have suffered enough. His words carried an unusual passion, surprising even his fellow harbingers. Pantalone, ever the strategist, adjusted his gloves as he spoke. If the Abyss is fractured, this presents an opportunity. We can exploit their division to strike at their weakest point. What is the plan, Feldway? Feldway's voice grew sharper. We attack the rogue faction that has taken Ivaraj. They are scattered and vulnerable. This is our chance to reclaim him before the princess's faction regains control. We'll need the full strength of the harbingers for this mission. Dottore eyes gleamed with a dangerous mix of curiosity and anticipation. You have my full support. The prospect of witnessing Ivaraj's power is too intriguing to pass up. Chilled smirked, his excitement building. Count me in. A battle like this is exactly what I've been waiting for. The Tsaritsa rose from her throne, her cold aura radiating authority. The time has come to claim Ivaraj. Bring him to me, and with his power, we will shatter the chains of the heavenly principles. As the harbingers dispersed to prepare for the assault, Feldway remained, his sharp grin unwavering. The abyss had shown its hand, and now the Fatui would play theirs. The game had begun, and the world of Teyvat trembled at the growing storm. The bustling streets of Liu Harbor were alive with the vibrant energy of the Lantern Rite Festival. Lanterns of every size and shape illuminated the city, and the air was filled with the aroma of festival delicacies. Rimuru, Ether, and Paimon wandered through the lively market stalls, sampling dishes and taking in the sights. Paimon, her cheeks puffed with food, exclaimed, "This is so good. Liu's food is definitely next level." Rimuru chuckled, amused by her enthusiasm, when he suddenly sensed a familiar presence. Turning around, he spotted Ketching approaching them with purpose. "Traveler," Ketching began, her tone calm yet direct. "I need you to come with me for a moment. There's something important we need to discuss." Ether, slightly surprised, glanced at Paimon and Rimuru, who both wore curious expressions. "Is it about the festival?" Ether asked. Ketching shook her head. "Not entirely. It's official business. I'll explain on the way." Rimuru smiled, sensing no ill intent from Ketching. "Go ahead, Ether. Paimon, you should stick with her. I've got some errands to run myself. Let's meet later at Baiju Guesthouse." Ether nodded, though he still seemed a little unsure. "All right. See you later, Rimuru." Internally, Rimuru connected with Seal. "Send a clone with them to observe from a distance. Just in case." Ciel's response was immediate. "Understood. I've already deployed one. They'll remain unnoticed unless necessary." Satisfied, Rimuru watched the trio disappear into the crowd before heading toward Liu's local publisher. After ensuring the second volume of the Seven Visionaries was in the capable hands of the publisher, Rimuru decided to explore the city further. He walked leisurely through the festival-lit streets, soaking in the warmth of Liu's rich culture. As he turned a corner, he noticed a small gathering near a storyteller's stand. Among the listeners, seated with his usual composed demeanor, was Zhongli. The former Geo-Archon seemed entirely engrossed in the tale being spun by the storyteller, his posture straight and regal even in casual clothing. Rimuru smiled and approached, his presence immediately sensed by Zhongli. Zhongli rose gracefully, a welcoming smile on his face. "Ah, Rimuru. It's good to see you. I trust you're enjoying the Lantern Rite." "I am," Rimuru replied with a nod. "And what about you? Taking a break from your usual duties?" Zhongli chuckled softly, his voice as calm as a mountain stream. "One might say that. The Lantern Rite is a time to reflect on Liu's past and celebrate its resilience. I find it fitting to immerse myself in its history during this time." Rimuru tilted his head, intrigued. "Liu's history, huh? I've always found it fascinating. There's so much depth to this city's culture." Zhongli gestured to the now empty chair beside him. "Then, by all means, join me. The storyteller here has a particular talent for weaving tales of Liu's past. You may find it enlightening." Rimuru took the offered seat, his curiosity piqued. As the storyteller resumed his tale, weaving a narrative of ancient wars, adepti, and contracts forged in blood and stone, Rimuru found himself drawn into the rich tapestry of Liu's history. As the story unfolded, Zhongli occasionally interjected with subtle corrections or additional context, his knowledge surpassing even that of the storyteller. Rimuru listened intently, appreciating the depth of Zhongli's wisdom. As the storytelling session concluded, the small crowd dispersed, leaving Rimuru and Zhongli alone under the soft glow of the lanterns. Rimuru leaned back slightly, a thoughtful smile on his face. "Quite a long and rich history Liu has," he remarked. Zhongli nodded, his golden eyes reflecting the lanterns above. "Indeed, Liu carries the weight of 3,600 years of history, built upon the foundation laid by myself and the adepti when this land was young." Rimuru smiled at the casual yet profound revelation, but his demeanor soon turned serious. Glancing around to ensure they were alone, he fixed his gaze on Zhongli. "You've lived through such a long time, seen countless events unfold before your eyes." Zhongli remained calm, though his brow arched slightly in curiosity. "That is true. But not every memory is a pleasant one. Time has a way of leaving scars, as well as wisdom." Rimuru leaned forward slightly. "Then let me ask you this, Zhongli. Do you know something about Kyanria?" The name hung in the air, its weight palpable. Zhongli's hand froze mid-movement, His teacup halted just before reaching his lips. Rimuru caught the faintest flicker of emotion in Zhongli's usually composed eyes, recognition and perhaps a tinge of unease. After a brief moment, Zhongli resumed his movement, taking a measured sip of tea before setting the cup down. Why do you wish to know about that nation? His tone remained calm, but there was a guarded edge to his words. Rimuru leaned back, resting his chin on his hand with a faint smile. Let's just say I'm trying to piece together some information about the past. Call it a curiosity of mine. Zhongli sighed softly, his gaze lowering to his teacup. I am afraid I cannot speak of Kyanria. Rimuru frowned slightly. Why not? The former Geo-Archon's voice carried a finality that brooked no argument. It is forbidden by my contract. Rimuru's sharp mind caught onto the phrasing. And who exactly forbade you from speaking of it? Zhongli's gaze remained steady, though his silence spoke volumes. That, too, is something I cannot divulge. Rimuru's lips curled into a knowing smile. Could it be, the heavenly principles? For the briefest of moments, Zhongli's composure faltered, his eyes betraying a flicker of acknowledgement before he quickly regained control. Rimuru, ever perceptive, took note but chose not to press further. Zhongli set his teacup down with deliberate care, turning to face Rimuru fully. I believe the past holds answers that the present must uncover for itself. That is the nature of history. And as such, there are stories even I must withhold, for the sake of balance and preservation. Rimuru chuckled softly, leaning forward again. Trying to change the subject, are we? Zhongli's faint smile returned. Perhaps. But rather than dwelling on what I cannot say, why not share your own story, Rimuru? You speak as someone who understands the weight of leadership. How is it that you govern your own land? Rimuru leaned back with a smirk, recognizing the redirection for what it was. Well played, Zhongli. Fine, I'll indulge you. He folded his arms, his expression softening as he recalled his experiences. My nation isn't as old as Liu, but it's a place where everyone, regardless of their origins, can find a home. We focus on coexistence, innovation, and growth. It hasn't always been easy, but I believe that mutual respect and understanding are the keys to building a strong and united society. Zhongli listened intently, his gaze thoughtful. A noble philosophy, and one that echoes the principles upon which Liu was built. Yet I sense that your journey has not been without its challenges. Rimuru nodded. Challenges are inevitable, but it's those challenges that shape us, isn't it? I've had my fair share of moments where I had to make hard decisions, decisions that still weigh on me. But I don't regret them. They've made my nation what it is today. Zhongli inclined his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. A ruler who bears the burden of their decisions with grace and wisdom. It is a quality to be admired. Rimuru chuckled. Coming from you, that's quite the compliment. But don't think I've forgotten about our earlier conversation. I know I won't get more out of you about Kyanria for now, but this isn't the end of it. Zhongli's smile widened ever so slightly. I expected nothing less. For now, however, let us enjoy the festival and the stories it has to offer. There will be time enough for deeper discussions. Rimuru leaned back in his chair, the warm glow of the lanterns casting soft shadows on his face as he recounted his tale. His voice carried a mix of nostalgia and pride as he began. It all started when I befriended a storm dragon named Veldora. He was sealed in a cave and had been alone for centuries. We struck up a friendship, and I managed to free him, though not in the way you'd think. That was the beginning of my journey. Zhongli, ever the attentive listener, sipped his tea. A storm dragon, you say? And how does one forge a bond with such a being? Rimuru chuckled. By being open-minded, I guess. Veldora wasn't the scary monster everyone thought he was. He just wanted companionship and someone to share his time with. After that, I stumbled upon a goblin village. Goblin, Zhongli repeated, tilting his head slightly. I don't believe I've heard of such a race. Rimuru explained, goblins are small humanoid creatures, typically considered weak in my world. But they have great potential when given guidance. My world is diverse, full of beings like slimes, goblins, Kijin, demons, angels, dragons, true dragons, dwarves, and many others. Each race has its quirks and strengths. Zhongli nodded thoughtfully. A truly diverse and fascinating world. And these goblins, what led you to them? They were on the verge of collapse, barely surviving attacks from stronger monsters, Rimuru replied. They asked for my help, and I decided to protect them. Over time, that small, struggling village grew into the most powerful nation in my world. Rimuru's tone softened as he spoke of Shizu. I met someone along the way, a human named Shizu. She gave me a sense of purpose. Her wish was for me to protect others and create a world where people could live without fear. It's a promise I've carried with me ever since. Zhongli set his teacup down, his gaze steady. To take a village on the brink of ruin and transform it into a flourishing nation, a feat not easily achieved. And coexistence between humans and monsters. Such harmony is indeed a novel and ambitious vision. I commend you for it. Rimuru grinned. Thanks. It wasn't easy, but I've had help. I don't do everything on my own, and I'm proud to say that dream is almost fully realized, if not already complete. Zhongli allowed a rare chuckle to escape. It seems I, too, could learn a thing or two from your experiences. Though, I suppose, in my retirement, such lessons may no longer be necessary. Rimuru leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Retirement or not, wisdom's always worth sharing. You've seen more than most people could even imagine, Zhongli. Your insights would be invaluable to anyone. Zhongli's expression softened, his golden eyes glinting with subtle amusement. Perhaps. But for now, I'll leave the task of world building to you. It seems you're well on your way to creating something extraordinary. Zhongli's gaze lingered on Rimuru as he sipped his tea, a glint of understanding and sympathy in his golden eyes. The Shizu you speak of must have possessed a truly remarkable spirit to leave such an indelible mark on you, he said softly. Rimuru nodded, his expression softening as a faint smile crossed his lips. She did. Shizu had this calm determination, even though her life was anything but peaceful. But, his smile faltered, replaced by a tinge of sorrow. She didn't survive. Back then, I wasn't strong enough to save her. Zhongli's brows furrowed slightly. My condolences for your loss. A life taken before its time is always a tragedy. Yet, from how you speak of her, it seems her influence continues to shape you even now. Why, if I may ask, was she not fond of the world you shared? Rimuru's gaze drifted upward, as if lost in memories. Shizu was summoned to my world. Forced there, really. Summoning magic is an ancient and dangerous practice in my world. Otherworlders like her often have immense magical energy, but most summoners can't control it. That lack of control has led to countless tragedies. Shizu was one of the few who survived, but not without scars. Her memories of that world were filled with pain and loneliness. She carried that burden until the end. Zhongli exhaled slowly, a faint flicker of surprise crossing his otherwise composed face. The power to summon beings from another world, a dangerous gamble indeed. To force someone into a foreign land, binding them to a fate not of their choosing, it is no wonder such practices yield such sorrowful results. Rimuru nodded solemnly. Shizu was exceptional, but the cost she bore was immeasurable. It's why I carry her wishes with me. She gave me a purpose, and I won't let her down. The two sat quietly for a moment, the gentle murmur of the festival carrying on in the distance. The moon cast a silvery glow over the bustling city, its light glinting off the teacups between them. Zhongli broke the silence. You've built a nation. From what I've heard in the Jade Chamber, it seems your world is filled with extraordinary individuals. They must be looking for you even now. Rimuru leaned back, gazing at the glittering moon. They are my people. They're strong, loyal, and far more capable than I could have imagined. I trust them to keep Tempest thriving while I'm away. But I know they're worried. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't eager to see them again. Zhongli smiled faintly, his tone thoughtful. A ruler who inspires such devotion in their people is rare. Your absence may weigh on them, but it's clear they hold you in the highest regard. It is a bond few rulers achieve. Rimuru returned the smile, a mix of pride and longing in his expression. Thanks. I owe them everything, and I'll make sure to return as soon as I can. But until then, I've got work to do here. The two shared a brief, knowing glance, a silent exchange between leaders who understood the weight of responsibility and the bonds that made it worth bearing. As the moonlight bathed the city in its glow, they raised their cups in quiet camaraderie, the night continuing on around them. The gentle clinking of teacups punctuated the quiet night as Rimuru and Zhongli continued to enjoy their peaceful conversation under the luminous glow of the Liu moon. The air carried the faint aroma of lantern oil and festival snacks, creating a serene backdrop that made Rimuru feel at ease. However, both Rimuru and Zhongli suddenly sensed a familiar presence approaching. Turning toward the source, they saw Ether, Paimon, and Keqing walking toward them. The sight was enough to make Rimuru tilt his head curiously. Keqing, usually composed and dignified, had a slight blush on her face, her gaze occasionally flickering away from Ether, who, as always, wore a bright and easy-going smile. Paimon, on the other hand, floated along with an enormous grin, clearly reveling in something amusing. She kept side-eyeing both Ether and Keqing in a way that suggested she knew something Rimuru didn't. Rimuru arched an eyebrow. What's this about? He wondered, his thoughts already connecting the dots. Internally, he asked, Ciel, what's going on here? Ciel's calm and ever-efficient voice chimed in his head. Ether invited Keqing to join the Lantern Rite Festival celebrations tomorrow. Keqing seems to have interpreted it as a date, though Ether appears completely oblivious to the implications. The revelation made Rimuru pause. A date, he thought, narrowing his eyes as he scrutinized Ether from head to toe. Wait a second, didn't he just go on one with Noelle back in Mondstadt? What is he doing now, collecting festival dates like souvenirs? His gaze lingered on Ether's golden hair and striking features, which seemed to shine even under the soft moonlight. It wasn't hard to understand why people might fall for him. Now that I really look, he's definitely good-looking, stands out, even. But still, dense as a rock. Ciel chuckled softly in his mind, catching Rimuru off guard. That's rich coming from you. The jab took Rimuru by surprise. What's that supposed to mean? He retorted, but Ciel only sighed, her amusement clear as she refused to elaborate. Meanwhile, Ether approached the tea table with his characteristic warmth. Sorry to interrupt, he said politely, his golden eyes briefly glancing at Rimuru and Zhongli. We were wandering the city and thought we'd find you here. Zhongli, ever composed and gracious, gestured to the empty chairs. No interruption at all. Please, take a seat and join us. Paimon wasted no time, floating closer to the table. Her grin widened as she turned to Rimuru. Oh, don't mind if we do. But, Rimuru, you'll never guess, Ether and Keqing are going to celebrate the Lantern Rite Festival together tomorrow. Keqing's blush deepened as she quickly tried to compose herself. Paimon, it's not like that, she said, her tone slightly flustered. Ether simply invited me to join him. Festivals are better enjoyed in good company, that's all. Ether, still clueless, nodded earnestly. Exactly. It'll be fun to celebrate together. Rimuru couldn't help but smirk as he watched the scene unfold. Poor Keqing, he thought. Caught in the whirlwind of Ether's accidental charm. And he doesn't even realize it. Zhongli, sipping his tea in silence, observed the group with a faint glimmer of amusement in his golden eyes. Though he said nothing, it was clear he was entertained by the unspoken tension. Paimon, however, was far from subtle. She floated closer to Rimuru and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, you know, Rimuru, Ether's really something. First Noelle, now Keqing. He's got a real knack for making people like him, huh? Paimon. Ether groaned, clearly embarrassed as his cheeks flushed slightly. Keqing looked flustered, focusing intently on her tea as if willing it to rescue her from the teasing. Rimuru chuckled, leaning back in his chair. Well, sounds like tomorrow is going to be an interesting day. Ether, Keqing, good luck with the festival. Keqing, trying to recover her composure, quickly nodded, while Ether simply smiled, still blissfully unaware of the underlying meaning behind Rimuru's words. After a day filled with festivities and stories, Rimuru, Ether, and Paimon made their way back to the Baiju guesthouse. The moon hung high in the sky, casting its soft glow over Liu Harbor. Paimon yawned widely, her tiny hands rubbing at her eyes as she floated lazily behind the group. Tomorrow's the Lantern Rite Festival, Paimon mumbled sleepily, her voice tinged with excitement and fatigue. We should sleep early. So much happened today, Paimon's brain needs a rest. Ether chuckled at her antics, while Rimuru simply smiled, nodding in agreement. You're right. It's been a long day, Rimuru said. They soon reached their rooms in the guesthouse. As the group settled down, Paimon curled up on the small bed designated for her, already drifting into slumber. Ether followed shortly after, his steady breathing indicating he'd fallen asleep quickly. Rimuru lay back on his bed, gazing up at the ceiling. His mind wandered to the events of the day, from his conversation with Zhongli to Ether's budding interactions with Keqing. He chuckled softly. That kid is something else, he thought, before closing his eyes and allowing sleep to claim him. Rimuru's rest was short-lived. He awoke not to the familiar surroundings of his room, but to an expanse of endless blue. He sat up abruptly, his senses alert. The surface beneath him was an ocean, but it was unnaturally calm, mirroring the infinite sky above. He recognized this place immediately. This again, that dreamscape. As he steadied himself, a faint voice reached his ears. It was distant, yet clear, echoing across the tranquil void. Fool them. The words sent a chill down Rimuru's spine. Rising to his feet, he summoned his katana, its polished blade catching the soft glow of the surreal light. What is this voice? Who's speaking? Determined to find the source, Rimuru began walking across the water, each step creating ripples that quickly vanished. The voice grew louder, guiding him toward a familiar figure in the distance. It was her, the woman with heterochromatic eyes. She stood with her back to him, her elegant form illuminated by the faint, dreamlike glow of the realm. Her posture was contemplative, as though she were lost in thought. Rimuru slowed his approach, his katana at the ready. He called out, his voice firm. Hey, who are you? What do you want? To his surprise, the woman turned this time. Her face was even more stunning than he remembered, her mismatched eyes, right eye being light blue and her left eye dark blue, seeming to pierce through him. Her expression was calm, her beauty almost otherworldly. For a moment, Rimuru felt his mind stopped working, but he quickly shook off the thought. Her gaze held an air of familiarity, as though she had been waiting for him. Rimuru Tempest, she said, her voice melodic. The mention of his name set Rimuru on edge. He tightened his grip on his katana, his body ready for any sudden movements. You know me, he said cautiously. Who are you, and why do you keep showing up in my dreams? You, she said, stepping closer, her mismatched eyes locking onto his, are an anomaly. A being whose very existence defies the flow of fate. Your presence in this world is both a blessing and a disruption. Rimuru's mind raced, but his expression remained guarded. An anomaly. What does that mean? The woman's gaze softened slightly. You are a key, she said, her voice tinged with both hope and sorrow. Her cryptic words left Rimuru unsettled. He took a step forward, his katana lowered slightly. What do you mean, what are you trying to say? Before she could answer, the calm ocean beneath them began to ripple violently. The once serene dreamscape trembled, as though some force was attempting to pull it apart. The woman glanced around, her expression unreadable. Our time here is limited, she said, her voice echoing as the dream began to fracture. We will meet again, Rimuru Tempest. When that time comes, I hope you will be ready for the choices you must make. Wait, Rimuru called out, but her form began to dissolve, along with the rest of the dreamscape. Rimuru shot up from his bed, he looked around, finding himself back in his room at the Baiju guesthouse. As Rimuru sat on the edge of his bed, still reeling from the strange dream, Ciel's familiar voice echoed in his mind. Master, you seem troubled. Did something happen? Rimuru shook his head, his expression neutral as he quickly suppressed the frustration simmering within him. Nothing happened, he replied curtly. But Ciel wasn't convinced. You can't hide things from me, you know. Rimuru ignored her comment, pushing himself off the bed. He stretched lazily, masking his inner turmoil with a casual demeanor. It's nothing to worry about. Let's just get on with the day. Ciel, sensing his mood, let it slide for now. Understood. I've already started organizing your tasks for today. Do you wish to proceed with the publication first or visit Ether and Paimon? Rimuru paused for a moment, rubbing his temples. Publication first. Let the others sleep a little longer. As he moved around the room, getting ready, his thoughts kept drifting back to the woman with heterochromatic eyes. His jaw clenched as he recalled her cryptic words. What the hell is wrong with that woman? He thought bitterly. If she has something to say, then just say it. Why waste time with all this talk about fate and anomalies? The anger bubbled under his calm facade as he walked toward the window. The faint light of dawn was beginning to peek over the horizon, casting Liu Harbor in hues of gold and orange. The beauty of the scene did little to quell his frustration. Ciel, ever observant, interjected gently. Master, you've dealt with many enigmatic individuals before. Perhaps she has her reasons for withholding information. Rimuru sighed, leaning against the windowsill. Maybe. But it feels like she's playing some kind of game, and I hate being kept in the dark. Seal responded with her usual calm tone. If she truly meant harm, she could have acted already. For now, focus on what lies ahead. Answers will come in time. Rimuru exhaled deeply, letting Ciel's words sink in. You're probably right. No point in wasting energy on something I can't control right now. He straightened up, his resolve hardening once again. The day had just begun, and there was much to do. The strange dream could wait, for now. The soft golden light of the morning sun illuminated the streets of Liu Harbor, bustling with life as festival preparations continued. Rimuru adjusted his cloak against the faint morning chill, setting out with a clear purpose, to check if the second volume of the Seven Visionary had been successfully published. His mind drifted to the previous day, replaying the conversation with the publisher. Lantern right, the publisher had said, nearly choking on his tea when Rimuru casually mentioned his deadline. You want the second volume released during Lantern right? As in, tomorrow. Rimuru nodded, smiling confidently. Exactly. It'll add to the festival atmosphere, don't you think? For a moment, the publisher looked like he was about to protest, but then he broke into a broad grin. You really know how to push the limits, don't you? But for the Seven Visionary, I suppose we can make it work. After all, the first volume's success has been unprecedented. The man stood, pacing excitedly. No, more than that, it was revolutionary. The intricacy of the plot, the depth of the characters, the clever foreshadowing, it's no wonder it broke every sales record in Liu. People can't stop talking about it. Rimuru listened, slightly taken aback by the publisher's fervor. The compliments were flattering, though he wasn't entirely used to such effusive praise. Well, thank you. I just hope the second volume lives up to the expectations. The publisher waved a dismissive hand. Oh, it will. Trust me. By this time tomorrow, the streets of Liu will be buzzing with excitement. The meeting had ended on a high note, with the publisher even inviting Rimuru for tea and hinting at future collaborations. If you ever have another story to tell, my doors are always open, he had said with a sly smile. Rimuru had politely agreed, though the sheer enthusiasm left him feeling a bit like a celebrity, a role he wasn't quite accustomed to yet. Now, standing just a few blocks from the bookstore, Rimuru's thoughts were interrupted by an unexpected sight. A massive line of people stretched down the street, winding around corners and disappearing out of view. The crowd buzzed with excitement, their voices carrying snippets of anticipation. Rimuru froze, his eyes wide. No way, is this for my book? Realizing he needed to keep a low profile, he reached into his imaginary space and pulled out a plain mask, slipping it on before venturing closer. As he approached the line, he tapped a man near the front on the shoulder. Hey, excuse me, how long have you been waiting here? The man, visibly tired but grinning from ear to ear, turned to face him. 4 hours. Can you believe it? Rimuru blinked, barely managing to suppress his shock. 4 hours. He repeated, his voice strained. The man nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, but it's worth it. This book is amazing. Curious, Rimuru pressed further. You're that excited for it, huh? The man's eyes lit up with a fiery passion as he spoke. Absolutely. It's not just a book, it's a masterpiece. The suspense, the twists, the characters, everything is perfect. There's no wasted detail, no plot holes. Even the biggest hit from Ye Publishing House doesn't come close to this. The man clenched his fist dramatically, as if declaring his allegiance to the story. Around him, others in line nodded vigorously, their expressions equally fervent. Rimuru chuckled awkwardly, scratching the back of his head. I see, he muttered, slightly overwhelmed by the praise. Not wanting to draw any more attention to himself, he excused himself with a polite wave. Well, good luck with your purchase. As he turned to leave, the man called after him. Hey, aren't you going to buy a copy? Rimuru paused, glancing over his shoulder. Maybe later, he said lightly. The man leaned closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. You know, there's a chance it might sell out. If you want, we can make a deal, I'll buy an extra copy for you. We can even sign a little contract. Rimuru laughed nervously, waving off the suggestion. Thanks, but I think I'll manage. Don't worry about me. The man shrugged, returning to his place in line, while Rimuru quickly made his way down the street, shaking his head in disbelief. I never expected this much enthusiasm, he thought to himself. But I guess it's a good thing. At least people like the story. As Rimuru continued down the street, weaving through the bustling crowd, he couldn't help but notice several familiar faces in the long line. His sharp gaze fell first on Xingqiu, the young Guhua enthusiast who seemed as composed as ever, holding a small stack of books and chatting animatedly with someone. Further down the line, Shenhe stood out, her pale complexion and white hair catching the sunlight. Her stoic demeanor hadn't changed, and she stood silently, her icy blue eyes scanning the area. When Rimuru's gaze lingered on her, she suddenly turned her head and locked eyes with him. Oh, Rimuru thought, his instincts kicking in. Did she recognize me? Not wanting to risk being stopped or questioned, Rimuru adjusted his mask slightly and quickened his pace. Shenhe, however, didn't make a move to approach him. Her expression remained unreadable as she slowly turned her head back toward the front of the line, waiting patiently for her turn. Rimuru exhaled in relief once he was out of her sight. Close call, he muttered under his breath, shaking his head. She's sharp. I'd better be more careful. After navigating through the bustling streets, Rimuru finally arrived at the Baiju guest house. He sighed, leaning against the doorway for a moment. Well, I made it back without incident. That's a win in my book, he thought with a small smile. As he stepped inside and made his way toward his room, he noticed Ether and Paimon standing in the hallway, just about to knock on his door. Their faces lit up when they saw him approaching. Good morning, Rimuru greeted with a friendly wave. Morning, Paimon chirped, floating over to him. We thought you were still sleeping. Well, you're up early and looking ready to go, Rimuru said with a grin, glancing at Ether, who nodded in agreement. We were about to wake you so we could start exploring, Ether said. Rimuru chuckled. Guess I saved you the trouble. So, where are we heading first? Paimon's eyes sparkled as she dramatically clutched her stomach. Breakfast. Paimon's starving. Let's go to Wanman restaurant. Ether laughed softly, nodding in agreement. Sounds like a good idea. Let's grab something to eat before the crowds get too big. Rimuru tilted his head. Breakfast, huh? With their destination decided, the trio set off toward Wanman restaurant, the bustling energy of Liu Harbor accompanying them. As they walked, Paimon eagerly chatted about all the delicious food she planned to try, while Ether quietly smiled, enjoying the lively atmosphere. Rimuru, listening to their banter, couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment. Days like these, he thought, are a nice change of pace. As the trio reached Wanman restaurant, the aroma of freshly prepared dishes filled the air. Rimuru, Ether, and Paimon took a seat, noting Xiangling's absence. Without her bustling energy, the restaurant felt unusually calm, but the food was as delicious as ever. As they started eating, Rimuru casually leaned back, sipping his tea, and then dropped a question that caught Ether completely off guard. So, what's your plan for this evening? Today's your big date with Keqing, right? Ether's cheeks turned a noticeable shade of pink. It's not a date, he protested, his voice flustered. I just asked her to celebrate Lantern Rite together, it's not what you think. Rimuru and Paimon exchanged knowing grins, the latter giggling uncontrollably. Sure, Rimuru teased. We totally believe you. You too. Ether groaned, burying his face in his hands. Rimuru laughed, leaning forward. All right, I'm just teasing you. But seriously, I must say, I've been thinking about a lot of things. Ether looked up, confused. What do you mean? Rimuru smirked. Well, if you're going out with someone as classy as Keqing, you should at least have a new outfit, right? I've been thinking about different clothes that would suit you. Maybe something with a modern edge or something more traditional to match the festival. Ether chuckled, shaking his head. Don't worry about that. These clothes mean a lot to me. His voice softened as he glanced down at his outfit, a flicker of melancholy crossing his face. They hold great significance in my life. Rimuru caught the sadness in Ether's expression, and for a moment, the teasing atmosphere faded into something more heartfelt. I see, Rimuru said gently. You're right. Clothes that carry memories are irreplaceable. After a moment of silence, Rimuru's expression softened further. But you don't have to dwell on those memories alone. Didn't I promise you? I'll be here, no matter what. Ether looked up, his golden eyes meeting Rimuru's. The sincerity in Rimuru's words struck a chord, and Ether nodded with a small, grateful smile. Yeah, Ether said quietly. You did. Paimon, who had been unusually silent during the exchange, suddenly burst in with her usual energy. All right, enough of this emotional stuff. We've got a festival to enjoy, and Paimon wants dessert. Rimuru and Ether both laughed, the moment of seriousness melting away as the trio returned to their usual light-hearted dynamic. As the trio continued to wander through the festive streets of Liu Harbor, the city was alive with the vibrant atmosphere of Lantern Rite celebrations. Children played merrily in the streets, their laughter blending with the gentle breeze that swept through the city. Every corner of Liu was adorned with colorful lanterns, shimmering decorations, and intricate lights that bathed the city in a warm glow. It was a sight that could lift anyone's spirits, and the bustling energy of the crowds made the entire city feel alive and full of wonder. Rimuru, Ether, and Paimon soaked it all in, enjoying the lively ambiance of the day. As they ventured toward Wangsheng Funeral Parlor, they noticed a familiar sight, a line outside the store. At first glance, it appeared to be much smaller than the one Rimuru had seen earlier that morning. The crowd had mostly dispersed, with only a handful of people left, each holding their copy of the Seven Visionary. The book, as it turned out, had been quite the sensation. Rimuru watched with a smirk, sensing that the group was curious about what had brought everyone out. Ether, always keen to ask questions, raised his brow. What's going on over there? He asked, eyeing the people in line. Rimuru couldn't help but grin. Oh, they're here for my book, he said, with a hint of pride in his voice. Paimon's eyes widened in surprise. What? There's a line just for your book. She stared at the people in the line, now beginning to disperse, realizing how significant this was. Yeah, but don't get too excited, Rimuru continued, grinning. The line is small because everything sold out already this morning, when you two were still sleeping. Paimon's jaw dropped. What? Her voice echoed in disbelief, which made Rimuru chuckle. He gestured for them to follow him as he made his way to the bookstore. They arrived at the shop, and the shopkeeper, who had clearly been working non-stop, was in the process of locking up for the day. He looked exhausted, slouched slightly as he moved to pull the shutters down. Without even glancing up, he mumbled a tired apology. Sorry, but all copies of the Seven Visionary are sold out, he said, his voice trailing off as if he had said this 100 times before. Rimuru raised an eyebrow. He chuckled to himself, then casually replied, Oh, I'm not here to buy a copy. I just wanted to know how many books were printed and sold today. The shopkeeper's head snapped up as soon as he recognized Rimuru. His face paled, his eyes widening in shock. Oh my goodness. His voice faltered as he realized who he was talking to. I didn't realize it was you. Please, forgive me, I didn't mean to be so rude. Rimuru waved a hand dismissively, his smile calm and reassuring. It's okay, don't worry. I'm just curious about the numbers. How many copies were printed, and how many sold? The shopkeeper scrambled for a moment, pulling out some paperwork and frantically checking the sales figures. After a few moments, he cleared his throat and finally gave the answer. Well, we printed a total of 1,000 copies, and, all of them have sold out. Paimon blinked in shock, her mouth hanging open. 1,000 copies. Rimuru, though surprised, was more composed. 1,000. Well, I anticipated the demand, but I didn't expect the publishing house to print that many copies overnight. He gave a small smile, satisfied with the success of the book, but then his attention turned to the shopkeeper, who was still looking at him with wide, hopeful eyes. So, how did things go? Rimuru asked casually, trying to keep the mood light. The shopkeeper, still starstruck, hesitated, but then spoke up. If it's not too much trouble, could I ask for your autograph? My daughter is a huge fan of yours. She's been reading your work non-stop. I'd really appreciate it if you could sign a copy for her. Rimuru smiled warmly, charmed by the shopkeeper's enthusiasm. Of course. He took a moment to scribble his signature, adding a little note of gratitude. He handed the signed copy back, and the shopkeeper was practically glowing with joy. Once they were done, Rimuru, Ether, and Paimon walked out of the store, heading down the lively streets of Liu. Paimon, still in awe of the whole situation, turned to Rimuru, her eyes wide. So, how much do you think you made today? Rimuru, now deep in thought, started calculating the earnings. Well, each book sells for around 2,000 mora, and since 1,000 copies were sold, that's 2 million mora total. With the 70% royalty split we agreed upon, I'll earn 1.4 million mora from this batch alone. Paimon's eyes went comically wide as she collapsed to the ground. 1.4 million mora. Just like that, she nearly fainted from the shock, and Ether caught her just in time. That much money? Ether asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Rimuru shrugged casually, a smile playing on his lips. What? It's not like it's a big deal. After all, how do you think we've been staying at the Baiju guesthouse all this time? Ether paused, thinking back. He and Paimon had been staying at the guesthouse without ever paying. No one had ever asked for payment or rent, and he never really questioned it. A small, amused grin spread across Rimuru's face as he continued. You figured it out, didn't you? Yes, I'm the one who rented all our rooms. Ether's eyes widened as the realization hit him. Wait, you're the one paying for all of this. Rimuru nodded nonchalantly. Yep, that's right, so don't worry about the money. Just enjoy the festival. I've got things covered. Ether blinked, still processing the information. Guess we owe you again. He chuckled, shaking his head. Rimuru simply shrugged. No need to thank me. Just make sure you don't mess up your date with catching tonight. Ether flushed a deep shade of red as Paimon shot him a mischievous grin. The teasing continued as they made their way through the festive streets of Liu, ready to enjoy the rest of the day and night, their worries eased by Rimuru's unexpected success and generosity. The scene shifted high above Liu, to the majestic jade chamber, floating gracefully in the sky. The sun's golden light reflected off the smooth surface of the chamber, creating a serene atmosphere within. Inside, Ningguang sat at a large desk, papers scattered in front of her as she read through them carefully. Her usual calm and composed demeanor was evident as she analyzed each document. As she went through the reports, her thoughts drifted to the unexpected success of Rimuru and his group. Well, I expected great things from the group, but Rimuru is making progress much faster than I thought, she muttered to herself, a slight hint of admiration in her voice. Indeed, his books are a hit, came the soft reply from Baiwen, who stood beside her. Baiwen, as usual, was dressed in her usual formal attire, her expression one of quiet respect and attentiveness. Ningguang nodded slightly, her gaze still fixed on the papers. His success is a testament to his adaptability. There's much more to him than meets the eye. She paused for a moment, deep in thought, before addressing Baiwen. Is everything ready? Baiwen stepped forward, holding a neatly wrapped gift in her hands. Lady Ningguang, this is what you requested, she said, offering the package. Ningguang took the gift with a small smile, her fingers gently brushing over the smooth wrapping. She glanced up at Baiwen, her eyes narrowing slightly. Did anyone see you there? Baiwen shook her head. No, Lady Ningguang. No one saw me, and no one asked any questions. Ningguang sighed in relief. Good. You may go now. Thank you for your work, Baiwen. Baiwen bowed respectfully, a hint of pride in her eyes for having completed the task successfully. It was my pleasure, Lady Ningguang. She then turned and exited the room, leaving Ningguang alone with the gift. Ningguang slowly unwrapped the package, her fingers delicately peeling away the paper. As the wrapping fell away, she revealed a pristine copy of the Seven Visionary, the book Rimuru had written. A faint smile tugged at the corner of her lips as she gazed at the book. She ran her fingers along the cover, admiring the craftsmanship of the binding. Well, it's good no one found out, she said softly, more to herself than anyone else. With a quiet chuckle, she stood up and walked over to her personal chambers, the book in hand. The door softly closed behind her, signaling the end of the brief scene in the Jade Chamber. The camera panned away, leaving Ningguang alone with her thoughts, as the floating palace continued to hover above the vast expanse of Liu below.